Hello, I'm Chris Barrow with the BBC News. Ukraine has called for a meeting with Russia within the next 48 hours over the escalating tensions on its border. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said Russia had ignored formal requests to explain the build-up of troops, but it needed to be transparent about its plans. Paul Adams reports.
With the sun beating down from a cold blue sky, Kiev still doesn't look like a city bracing for war. There are no signs of panic, but with airlines starting to cancel or divert their flights and rumours swirling that the airport could soon close, the crisis is starting to take on tangible forms. High-level diplomatic efforts to defuse this crisis go on. Germany's new Chancellor Olaf Scholz is coming here to Kiev tomorrow before travelling on to Moscow. Any military aggression that threatens Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty, he said today, would lead to tough sanctions that had been carefully prepared.
Canadian police have finished clearing protesters angry at COVID restrictions from an important border crossing with the United States. The demonstrators, led by truck drivers, had been blocking the Ambassador Bridge for nearly a week. The White House has welcomed their removal, saying they damaged people's livelihoods. Marika Walsh is a Canadian journalist for the Globe and Mail newspaper.
Police had a massive presence on Sunday morning, clearing protesters. They well outnumbered the protesters, and they also towed two pickup trucks that were left who refused to leave. And the police now are maintaining it, and we still are waiting for details then on when commercial traffic can flow and when it can reopen to the critical trade that Canada has with the U.S.
An Iraqi court has sentenced two men to death over a raid on a home in December in which 20 members of the same family were killed. Mike Thompson has the details.
Security forces opened fire on the house in Babel Governorate, saying they were pursuing suspected terrorists. Those sentenced were the officer in charge of the operation and a disgruntled relative of one of the victims, said to have given false information about the presence of terrorists as a result of a long-running family dispute. Most of those killed in what became known as the Babel massacre were women and children. What happened was described by Iraq's Prime Minister as criminals hiding under the cover of state institutions. Several other people involved in the raid are yet to be sentenced.
Thousands of people in Tunisia have been protesting about a decision by a new judicial body set up by the president to grant him the power he wants over the country's judges. It gives President Kais Saied the ability to promote or dismiss judges. The demonstrators chanted, "Shut down the coup." President Saied is continuing to strengthen his control over the country's institutions. This is the latest world news from the BBC. The UN says 4 women activists in Afghanistan who disappeared from their homes weeks ago have been released by the Taliban authorities. The UN agency in the country says relatives who went missing with them have also been freed. The women had taken part in protests in Kabul demanding the right to work and education. A Sudanese politician who'd been a member of the ruling Sovereign Council has been arrested. Relatives say Mohamed Al-Faqi Suleiman was picked up in the capital Khartoum. Our Africa regional editor Will Ross reports.
The arrest of Mohamed Al-Faqi Suleiman looks like further evidence that the military men in charge of Sudan are determined to stop the widespread reforms that people were once promised. Along with 2 other politicians arrested last week, he had been part of a task force trying to dismantle the political and economic networks set up by the former autocratic president, Omar al-Bashir. It's now nearly 3 years since Mr. Bashir was ousted, but his military allies are still in key positions and want to retain power. It's looking less and less likely that the years of pro-democracy protests are leading to the changes so many in Sudan are demanding.
The French Conservative presidential candidate Valérie Pécresse has warned against extremism in her first major rally ahead of April's election. In a speech seen as critical to energise her struggling campaign, she targeted the far-right candidates, telling voters to refuse the venom of nostalgia. She said she embodied national unity, while her rivals represented disunity. The biggest event in American football will kick off in Los Angeles soon. Around 100 million people worldwide are expected to tune in to watch the Cincinnati Bengals take on the Los Angeles Rams at the Super Bowl. A star-studded lineup is planned for the half-time show that's become as important as the game itself. Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Kendrick Lamar and Mary J. Blige are all performing inside the new $5 billion stadium. I'm Chris Barrow, and for now, that's the latest BBC News.